Has anyone checked on Colleen Hoover? Is she okay? Regretting You is her most recent adaptation, and it's an emotionally confusing romantic drama that's full of heartbreak, family dysfunction, deceit, and then also some surprising charm. Morgan Grant and her daughter Clara explore what's left behind after a devastating accident reveals a shocking betrayal and forces them to confront family secrets, redefine love, and rediscover each other in the aftermath of tragedy. This stars Allison Williams, McKenna Grace, Dave Franco, and Mason Thames, and it centers around a family who have their lives upended after a deadly accident, only to then have additional complications and issues mixed in just thanks to some secretive actions. Now, the reason that I said this was emotionally confusing in the intro is because I'm not quite certain how I'm ultimately supposed to feel about what we watch play out. Williams, Grace, and Franco, they each deal with awful tragedies that, while sad, also shed light on some horrid duplicity, presenting us with relationships that we're eventually meant to root for, we want to root for, but also kind of feel dirty for rooting for. And I know I'm being a little bit vague here, but if you haven't read the book or even seen the trailer for this, there's a key moment towards the beginning of the film that can be a surprise, and I don't want to spoil that portion. Now, there is one dynamic that I wanted to root for and didn't feel any wonkiness or guilt in doing so, and that's between McKenna Grace and Mason Thames. They're cute and sweet together, both sharing in some endearing giggles that showcase their charm. This doesn't mean, though, that their interactions aren't devoid of any tension or conflict. And to the story's credit, the angst and emotional tumult that is displayed, especially on Grace's part, feels genuine and believable. The story doesn't sugarcoat her anguish and heartache, which then bleeds into outbursts and fights with her mom. And these make the characters feel less fantastical and more grounded in reality, which then makes any romance or character growth that much more engaging. There is still a bit of rose-colored view when it comes to the relationship that begins between Grace and Thames. And I appreciate that we do get some real conversations and examinations about emotional manipulation. But these are also tamed down and then resolved fairly quickly so that the honeymoon phase of high school romance can continue unhindered. Allison Williams and Dave Franco, they also deliver some charismatic performances, both showcasing vulnerability amidst their travel through some of the stages of grief. And they're both likable, but there's also this element within their dynamic that comes across as way more unrealistically optimistic than it probably should. And that's not to say that they don't have a wonderful presence together. There is a visible tension present that creates some palpable emotional beats. But I still was having just this ton of difficulty dismissing the surrounding circumstances to fully connect with their interactions. While the majority of the film is steeped in sadness and melancholy, there are some excellent moments of laugh-out-loud humor. There are few supporting cast members who add some needed life and levity to balance out the dour drama. Sam Morelos, Ethan Costania, and Clancy Brown, they each steal their scenes. They're not bombastic or huge presences within the sequences, but their timing and their delivery just complement in perfect ways. And as far as the story progression goes, this follows a predictable arc, leading us through the standard highs, the inevitable misunderstandings, some slight lows, and then minor conflicts that then resolve into a realization, maybe a rationalization, that makes everything conclude on a happy note. And I'm not upset by this. I mean, when I watch a romance, I want things to work out between the couples that I'm meant to root for. My largest hesitation with this is that there's still a bit of an undefined ick that I'm left with. I want the conclusion we get, but I still walk away conflicted about how quickly and uncomplicated a certain relationship progresses. Maybe I'm just talking myself in circles too. I mean, I really want the happy ending. But if I hold the story to something that's way more realistic, I don't get that same happy ending. I just wish I felt better about how things played out. Now, I thought the movie was going to feel long because it was just short of 2 hours. And that's typically where a romance starts to feel stretched out. But thanks to the complexity of the relationships that we watch form, the time it didn't feel as though anything was dragging. There were some scenes that hinged on becoming repetitive, but these also worked to show the emotional progression a character was making, or in some instances wasn't making. The story flows well, other than one of the relationships being less believable just simply because of the speed at which it progressed. Overall, the rawness and vulnerability portrayed create magnetic sweetness, providing us with emotionally conflicted characters in search of closure, understanding, and love. Allison Williams, McKenna Grace, Dave Franco, and Mason Thames all create indelibly charming characters that are a mix of sadness, rage, wit, yearning, and hope. The vulnerability of the performances endear through palpable realism while also not leaving us stranded in a sea of despair. Despite the story containing a bunch of predictability and creating some conflicting, possibly uncomfortable dynamics, Regretting You is ultimately a tender tale that should leave you with a heartwarming smile. There's sex, no nudity, a lot of profanity, and no violence. I give Regretting You 3.5 out of 5 couches. So have you seen any great romances lately? I would love to get some recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.